Welcome back, everybody, to the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise here on MLB The Show 20. We have a very exciting video today. We're going to be doing part 1 of our long-term simulation now that the actual series itself is over. Rather than just ending it, I do want to see what happens in the careers of all of these players and see what happens to this Pirates team. So that's why these final 3 episodes, we will be simulating the next 10 to 15 years, really seeing what happens to all of these guys. Today, we will be covering seasons 6, 7, and 8. So 3 seasons worth of Pirates action in 1 episode. Get your popcorn ready because it's going to be fun. Of course, last episode, we won the World Series. Here's a look at the box score for those who need a refresher. Of course, headlined by a 2-home-run game from the Japanese sensation, Big Ding Benny Ling. Josh Bell won playoff and World Series MVP, with Wander Franco and Dylan Carlson also in consideration for postseason MVP. And obviously, we've had a lot of fun memories with this team. Obviously, we've just won ourselves a World Series championship, and there are a lot of players on this team, specifically the young guys, and I want to see what happens to all of these players, as well as some of the guys in the farm system who never really got their chance to shine in the big leagues. So that's what we're going to be doing today here. 3 entire seasons. We're going to be going through the off seasons, going through the regular seasons. And that all starts with this off season right here. We have a lot of big decisions to make. Guys like Francisco Mejia, Ken Giles, Carl Edwards, they are all free agents. And we have a lot of big decisions we're going to have to make in this video, and we're going to have to split up a lot of our core today. For the most part, I will be putting pretty much everything on auto. I still want some control of the team, so lineups and rotations will remain on. Waivers I'm going to keep on. Trades, free agents, and when I have to re-sign the actual free agents, I will put contracts on manual as well. I still want to control the team, but since I'm going through 3 seasons in 1 episode, I didn't want to control everything just because that would take way too long. So let's get this first offseason underway. We are going to be going through 3 off-seasons today and 3 regular seasons. Starting with retirements, we don't have anybody retiring from our organization this year. The only Hall of Famer is Miguel Cabrera, and as a Tigers fan, very happy to see Miggy getting the respect he deserves. One of the all-time great hitters of our generation. So let's get the juice of today's video underway, starting with the exclusive free agent negotiations. We have a lot of big-time players in here, and we don't have a lot of money because we have a lot of cash tied into other guys. So obviously the big name here is Francisco Mejia. We acquired him back in Season 1 from the Padres, and that ended up being a great move for us. And although catcher isn't as important as some positions, Francisco Mejia is the best catcher in baseball right now. He has a cannon for an arm, he's great at the plate, and I don't think it would make sense for us to let go of him right now. He's 28 years old. He's in the middle of his prime. I think we can get 2 or 3 more good years out of him. So I'm going to offer him a 2-year front-loaded contract for $50 million. So he will be hopefully re-signed, but I'm not going to go after some of these relievers like Ken Giles. Giles is 34. He still wants a lot of money, and although he's a very good player, he was awesome in the postseason for us. We have a loaded bullpen at the moment, and our farm system is loaded with relievers. And the same goes for Carl Edwards. He's 33. He was a great trade deadline pickup this year. He was also excellent in the postseason, but he's going to be too pricey. And we have a lot of young guys in AAA who I think are going to be ready for the big leagues. I will be going after Raisel Iglesias, though. Iglesias is very cheap. He only wants $1.8 million, so this isn't a huge dent out of our salary, so that's an offer I'm willing to make. We're also going to try to bring back head coach Ike Braun. I'm not really going to be touching the staff too much, but I did want to bring back Braun since he is the manager that won us a World Series. Jose Alvarado accepts his player option. I think this is good for us. I want Alvarado to stay on the team as long as possible. Joey Lucchesi declines his, and again, I think this is probably for the better. I think Joey Lucchesi is a really good player. I'm happy we picked him up this past offseason. He had a really solid postseason run, did struggle in the World Series, but I do think we are going to be letting him go. Again, we have a lot of good young pitchers in the minors. Patrick Magana is ready to be a full-time starter, so I think letting Joey Lucchesi go will probably be for the better. So all of those guys will be entering free agents. I'm going to have tendering contracts and arbitration on auto. And here is the free agency class, and it is absolutely loaded. Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Victor Robles, Shane Bieber, Chris Paddock, Ramon Laureano. There are so many good players in here. And as much as I'd like to get some of these guys, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for us. We have $107 million tied into player salaries, so we do have a good amount of money to spend. And I do think there are some players we could look at, but I do also want to cheapen up the salary books a little bit. So I do think it makes sense to trade some expensive players, including Miguel Andujar. Another guy who we just picked up last offseason, and Andujar was fine, but we have a lot of young guys like Brian Hayes who I think are ready to be full-time starters. So I just want to get cheaper and get some good prospects, and that's what we're getting here from the Kansas City Royals. 3 prospects in exchange for Miguel Andujar. I think that's fair value. The best prospect is a potential outfielder, Brad Kinsey, who's a little bit raw, but he does have some potential. He can play both outfield spots. He can also play second. So I think that is very useful. And now we're down to $94 million in player salaries. So now we can spend a little bit. I don't think it makes sense for us to get a guy like Juan Soto or Fernando Tatis, as fun as that would be. We don't really need those guys. We do need to retool the bullpen a little bit, so I'm going to offer Diego Castillo a contract. He had a really good season this past year, a sub-3 ERA, so I'm going to offer him a 1-year deal. We're also going to go after 21-year-old utility infielder Sam Bagley. I think he was just drafted, and I guess his team didn't sign him for whatever reason, so we'll gladly take him. Also going to offer Andrelton Simmons a contract. Still one of the best fielders in baseball. 35 years old. Not going to be an everyday player for us. But I think he'll probably replace Cesar Hernandez as the utility infielder. He wants $5.5 million, but for 1 year, that's a contract I'm willing to offer. A lot of good players switching teams. Chris Paddock to the Indians. Juan Soto to the White Sox. Miguel Andujar is traded from Kansas City to Houston. Typical MLB The Show logic. The Royals just got Andujar, and now they trade him away days later. Because that's what this game is. Victor Robles to Arizona. Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Blue Jays. Tyler O'Neill will be staying in our division. He's a Milwaukee Brewer, and so is Brandon Lau. So the Brewers are getting stronger. This is not good news for us. Austin Meadows is a Blue Jay. Shane Bieber is a Dodger. Eloy Jimenez is a Cardinal. Now we have to worry about him. We never really had to worry about St. Louis in this series. It was just us in Milwaukee. I imagine St. Louis wants to contend again. Carl Edwards to the Braves. Mike Soroka to the Padres. San Diego gets even stronger. Brandon Woodruff is no longer a Brewer. That's good news for us. He does sign with the Nationals, so I guess that's not good news. The Nationals also signed Ramon Laureano. So, again, not good news because the Nationals are still a very solid team, even though they don't have Juan Soto. Alex Verdugo is a Dodger. That's ironic. Joey Lucchesi is an Angel. It seems like all of our former starting pitchers end up with the Angels. Ken Giles signs a 3-year deal with the Dodgers. I was not willing to pay him 3 years, so hopefully he does well in L.A. Franmil Reyes to Tampa Bay. He's a glitch in this game, and the Rays are already really good, so that's not overly fun. The Angels clearly have unlimited money. They signed Caleb Smith. So yeah, a lot of players around the league switching teams, and the MLB landscape does look a lot different, but for the most part, we are pretty similar. Outside of a few changes in the bullpen, we have pretty much our entire core back for this upcoming season, which is very good. Here's Jacob deGrom to the Twins, Kevin Newman, our former player, to the Diamondbacks. So still a lot of moves being made. Another former Pirate, Gregory Polanco, is on the move. He is really good. 306, 32 dingers. Gregory Polanco has been a beast ever since he left our team, so good for him, I guess. As we continue to simulate, we're now in February, and I see JD Martinez is in free agency. JD Martinez is ridiculous in this game, so I figured, hey, why not offer him a 1-year contract? It doesn't hurt. He ended up accepting our deal, so JD Martinez is now a Pittsburgh Pirate. That brings us to spring training. We're not going to spend a lot of time here in spring training. And now we are into the regular season. Here's a look at the lineup entering Season 6 and the first year of a long-term sim. For the most part, the lineup is the same as last year. The only difference is JD Martinez will be on the squad, and Brian Hayes will be starting against righties at third. The pitching rotation, again, for the most part, is similar. Patrick Magana now a full-time starter. Mitch Keller is back as the long reliever. And the only new addition to the bullpen is Diego Castillo. So we have a very similar roster, and hopefully we're able to run it back. We're going to simulate to the draft, which is in 69 days. Nice. And as you can see, we're starting the season off pretty nicely. At 40-20, we lead the NL Central. The Cardinals are actually in second. The Brewers are close behind. And we have a lot of guys playing well. Francisco Mejia currently second for the MVP race. I was not expecting him to be this good. And Benny Lane is in third. Hopefully we can get a full, consistent season of dominant Benny Lane. Pablo Cairo, by the way, is also hitting .359, so that's cool. I had the CPU draft for us, and I kind of regret that because they didn't really draft anyone good other than our last pick, Mark Harding, who looks to be our best pick, which is kind of ironic. Now we're going to simulate to the All-Star Week. Mejia, Ling, and Cairo are all first in voting for their respective positions. I also saw Kevin Newman was in there. He's in first place, too. That's kind of funny. So we are making a quick little change to the lineup. JD Martinez is hitting .360. Cabrian Hayes is hitting .211. So Martinez will now be an everyday player. Hayes will be moved to the bench. And I am going to be turning injuries for me to have control of what happens with the MLB injuries. I originally had that on auto, but I want control of the Major League boo-boos. So here's a look at the All-Star teams. Jameson Taillon, Raisel Iglesias, both there. Ken Giles made it for the Dodgers. We also have Francisco Mejia and Benny Lane making it. I imagine, what's-his-face? Pablo Cairo probably made it too. So that gives us... No, Cairo did not make it. I don't know how that happened, but we ended up with 4 All-Stars. Taillon, Iglesias, Mejia, and Lane. And now we're going to simulate to the trade deadline. I don't think there are a bunch of big moves we have to make at the deadline, but before that, I do want to hand out some contract extensions, starting with Jose Alvarado. He is the closer, in my opinion, for the next 5 years. He is really good. He wants 5 years, $36 million. Absolutely willing to do that. I also want to re-sign Josh Bell. Bell is starting to decline a little bit. He's still having a good year this year, but he is a free agent, and I'm not letting him retire anywhere other than Pittsburgh. So we're going to offer him a 3-year deal, $45 million. I'm going to backload the contract. I probably meant to front-load it, but he accepts the deal, so Josh Bell will be back for the next 3 seasons. And as we get to the trade deadline, Francisco Mejia tears his ACL. I thought everything was really going well, and now one of our best players tears his knee. So now we need a new catcher because Juan Cedeno is hitting .132. I'm sorry, I'm not letting him play every day. That's just not going to cut it. So now we're in the market for a catcher. And a guy who kind of intrigued me is 33-year-old Joe Hudson from the Seattle Mariners. I wanted someone who could hit well specifically for contact, and that's what Hudson is. He's not overly expensive, and he's not going to cost too much considering he's 33 years old. We're going to be giving up a few prospects. I didn't want to give up Sam Bagley, who we just signed, but I felt it was necessary in order to get Joe Hudson here. So he will plug into the lineup. Juan Cedeno will be back as the backup catcher. And now at 68-40, we will be simulating the rest of the season to the postseason. And we finished the year with a record of 104-58, which somehow is not good enough for the 1 seed. The Brewers finished in second. They won 98 games, so we beat them in the division again. But the Padres won 107 games. Here's a look at the final stats for the season. We had a lot of guys play well. Wander Franco, Pablo Cairo, Josh Bell, Dylan Carlson, O'Neal Cruz, they all played well. Benny Lane, too. He hit bombs this year, 34 deniers, which is actually a career low, which is kind of wild. He is currently injured, though, from a postseason, which is kind of rough. The starters were solid. Santiago Osuna improved very nicely, but the bullpen was really bad. Caleb Ferguson's ERA was in the 6s. Emmanuel Clases was in the 5s. Gaylord Dixian's was in the 7s. So we're going to simulate this playoff series here against the Nats, and we lose. So we opened up the first year of the long-term simulation, losing in the NLDS to the Nationals, who finally get revenge on us for beating them in the playoffs 2 straight years. The Padres ended up beating the Angels in the World Series. So an unfortunate end to the season there. And now we're going to move to the offseason. Jared Makepeace retires. He was a really good contact-hitting minor league outfielder. I kind of wanted to get him in the majors at one point, but it never happened. Scherzer makes the Hall of Fame. We're going to accept Francisco Mejia's club option. That wasn't really a tough decision. He was great this year. And we do have a few big free agents. Currently, we only have $69 million, nice, tied into player salaries, so I might be a little bit more lenient when it comes to spending. We have quite a few pitchers here, including Jordan Yamamoto and Mitch Keller, both of whom have been very solid for us, specifically Yamamoto, but I'm going to be letting both of them walk. We have a lot of guys in AAA who I think are ready for the majors, like Domingo Robles and Quinn Priester, so I'm okay with letting those two go. Diego Castillo was not great this year, but I do want to bring him back. 1 year, $4 million, and we're going to offer the same contract to Victor Arano. He also was not all that great this year, but I want to bring a lot of the relievers back. I do think they can rebound next year. We're also going to be bringing back JD Martinez on a short-term contract, 1 year for around $5.5 million. He was really good for us this year, and although I would love to start some young guy, I'm also trying to win the World Series. So I think Martinez can really help us there. And Raisel Iglesias, we're going to give him another short-term deal, 1 year for around $1.6 million. Everybody else who we did not offer, we will let walk. So again, another loaded free agency class. Yordan Alvarez, Rafael Devers, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., a lot of really good players in here. Keston Hiura as well. I think he'll finally leave the Milwaukee Brewers, which is very good news for us. So the first player we're going to offer a contract to is Reyes Maranta. I still want to continue to have the most loaded bullpen in baseball, and I think getting Maranta, who's been really good these past few seasons, will do just that for us. Spending a lot of his career with the Giants, he has been on the move in the past few years, so we're going to offer him a 2-year, $15 million deal with a player option for the second year. And I'm going to go after Jacob deGrom. deGrom is 37 years old, but he's still really good, and I think he might be a cheaper option than a lot of these other starters. I don't want to offer a starter a long-term contract either, so that's why I'm going to go after him. Reyes Maranta immediately accepts. Let's see all the other players where they will be ending up. Luis Robert will be staying in the AL Central. He is a Cleveland Indian. Bo Bichette will be rejoining the NL Central. He is a St. Louis Cardinal. That's very interesting, the former Pirate. Dustin May to the Astros. Mitch Keller is a Royal. That's interesting. I imagine he might be their ace there. The Royals don't have a lot of great pitchers. Keston Hiura is a Dodger. Let's go. He's no longer in Milwaukee. It's a good day to be a Pirates fan right now. Yordan Alvarez signs a 10-year deal with the Braves. Rafael Devers to Arizona. The Pirate killer, Dievy Grulon, is no longer in St. Louis. That's good news for us. Nick Senzel to Toronto. Jordan Yamamoto to Boston on a big 5-year contract. I was not willing to pay him that much, so you can take him, Red Sox. Josh Naylor signs a 9-year deal to the Cardinals. He hit 190 this past year, so that's not too bad for us. Speaking of our Pirates, Jacob deGrom does accept the contract, so he will be joining our rotation this next season as some more free agent signings coming in. Sean Newcomb to Houston. Archie Bradley to the Angels. Dom Smith will be entering our division. He is a Cincinnati Red. I'm not particularly looking forward to playing him often. Gavin Lux is a Texas Ranger. That's a pretty big pickup for them. I think they signed Gleyber Torres last offseason too, which is kind of wild. Former Pirate Cole Tucker to the Seattle Mariners on a 4-year contract as we now enter the Rule 5 draft. Patrick Waldron was picked by the White Sox. He's been in our farm system. I'm not mad at the game for letting him go. Our bullpen is so loaded, so I guess that's fine. Ketel Marte traded to the Twins in exchange for Jordan Balazovic. Max Muncy to the Texas Rangers. He's still quite good at like 36 years old. And that brings us to the month of February, so now it is time to simulate into Season 7. And we have a lot of big free agents coming up. Jamison Tyone, Dylan Carlson, Francisco Mejia, and O'Neal Cruz are all free agents at the end of the year, and there's no way we can bring all 4 back. So, before we get to the season, I do have a couple players I want to trade, including Ke'Bryan Hayes. Hayes just hasn't really worked out for us. He hit .211 last year, and I think moving on from him could be for the better. So we're going to be sending him to Atlanta in exchange for a few prospects, including right fielder Miguel Quevedo, who is 20 years old, a potential of 63 overall. Hayes is a stud in real life, but in this series, he's only developed into an average player. Another really good prospect in real life who hasn't really panned out for us is Travis Swaggerty. At also 28 years old, I think moving on from him could probably be for the better as well. So we're going to send him, along with Raisel Iglesias, to the Tigers in exchange for Anton Herrera, who's a really good relief pitcher prospect, and outfielder Andy Squires. I think we got really good value there. I traded Iglesias because I think we needed an extra roster spot, but it turned out we didn't. So I just traded Raisel Iglesias for nothing, pretty much. Oh well, not a huge deal because he's like 37, but a little bit unfortunate as we look at the lineup here for Season 7. Again, most of the core is still intact, and I don't think it'll be this way for too much longer, especially considering we have a lot of guys as free agents this offseason, so we are going to have to start making tough decisions. A few minor leaguers like Casey Andrade, Koizumi Satoshi, and Alexander Canario are now with the big league club. And then the pitching rotation, Jacob deGrom replaces Jordan Yamamoto. Osuna and Magana are still progressing very nicely. Domingo Robles enters as the long reliever. And the bullpen now looks a little bit different with the addition of Reyes Maranta. So again, we should be a very good team this year. Hopefully we can get another World Series championship. Gonna simulate to draft day, but before we do, I'm actually gonna change Wander Franco's position to second base. That's where he's been playing for us since we called him up, so I figured I would just make the change. And he's now a 99 overall with morale, so good for him. I think he's the first player in the series to reach 99 overall. So as you can see, we are 37-25, half a game behind the Reds for first place in the division. I did want to show you guys our starters' stats because our starting pitching has been really good this year. Santiago Osuna has an ERA of 2 flat. So he has been absolutely incredible. I simmed the draft again, and we did even worse. Maybe I should be the one drafting because the CPU looks like they have no clue what they're doing. A lot of these guys have cool facial hair, though, so I guess there's that. As I did simulate to the All-Star break, Pablo Cairo dislocates his ankle and he is done for the year. That's not good news for us. Andy Squires also tears his Achilles. He was part of the trade we made with the Tigers at the beginning of the year, and he is done for the year. So losing Pablo Cairo and Pablo Cairo's backup really sucks. We're now 2 games behind the Reds for first place in the division going into the All-Star break. As we take a look at the All-Stars, we actually only had 1. That being Dylan Carlson, which kind of surprised me. I guess Santiago Osuna's kind of cooled down. Ken Giles made it again, so maybe we should have brought him back. But he's doing really well for the Dodgers. Good for him. But outside of Carlson, nobody made the All-Star team, which I don't agree with. I think there were players who were having All-Star type seasons, but oh well. As the Brewers, who are 4th in the division, they trade Brandon Lau and Miguel Sano to the Rockies for Nolan Arenado. Milwaukee is really trying to push. And as we simulate to the trade deadline, we are all of a sudden 4.5 games ahead of the Reds. So we are starting to really play well. But I do have a big trade, and it's not one I think people are going to like. Dylan Carlson, as you can see, wants a max contract, which is more than the other free agents we have are asking for. And I'm not willing to pay him that. Dylan Carlson's been a great player for us since the very start. He was a huge piece in that final playoff run, but he's a free agent, and we are going to trade him. And I think we are fleecing the Chicago White Sox. We're going to be getting back 2 really good players. The first one is relief pitcher Andres Munoz, who throws really hard. He has a great ERA, and he's been doing well. He's also locked up for 4 years. But the big piece here is Jarred Kelenic, a 26-year-old outfielder. He's almost as good as Dylan Carlson is right now. I'm so surprised if the White Sox were willing to do this. He is locked up on a cheap contract as well, so I will gladly take that. And we're going to be making another small trade here. Luis Guillorme going to the Marlins for Anton Cairo. I don't know if he's related to Pablo or not, but yeah, a very big trade deadline. Dylan Carlson no longer a Pirate, but we do add Andres Munoz and Jarred Kelenic to the team. So the other 3 agents are Francisco Mejia, O'Neal Cruz, and Jameson Taillon. We're going to re-sign Mejia right now. He's being stingy about the money, but he's been really good so far in this long-term sim, so I want him back. And we will wait on O'Neal Cruz and Jameson Taillon until the offseason. So now we will be simulating the rest of the season. Hopefully we can make the playoffs. And before that, we get an injury. Wander Franco breaks his arm. He's out 2 to 3 months. That is not good news. But we do win 99 games, which is good enough for the top seed in the NL. I think the team was way worse this year, but we finished with a higher seed, so I'm not really going to complain. The Brewers ended up finishing 2nd, so the Nolan Arenado trade ended up really helping them. Here's a look at the numbers for the season. Josh Bell hit 40 dingers. He's still producing at a pretty high level. Benny Lang was kind of quiet, only 25 dingers, 248 average. He was not all of that incredible. Jarred Kelenic was really good. He's going to be really good for a while. I'm really stoked that we were able to add him to the squad in exchange for pretty much an expiring contract in Carlson, who I didn't think we were going to bring back. Wander Franco had a really good year before he was hurt. Pablo Cairo was kind of unimpressive. He only had 5 home runs through like 2.5 months, so that's a little bit disappointing. The starting pitching obviously was really good. Santiago Osuna has progressed very nicely, now an 89 overall. Magana had a great year as well, and the bullpen was a lot better. Ferguson's ERA was far better, but not everybody was great. Emmanuel Clase had an ERA in the 9s, so that's a little bit shaky, but Alvarado was really good. Maranta was solid. Andres Munoz was very good. So now it is time to see who we're playing in the first round. It's the Diamondbacks. They beat the Brewers in the wild card game. In the other series, it's Washington and San Diego. I feel like the Nationals and Padres played each other so many times in the playoffs in this series. So we start 1-1, now 2-1. All we have to do is win one of these next two games, and we don't. Another NLDS defeat, this time at the hands of the Diamondbacks. Luckily, they do win the World Series, so at least we can say we lost to the champions. But again, another NLDS exit. Ryan Falk, I don't know who that is, and Miguel Mota both retire. Clayton Kershaw and Steven Strasburg are Hall of Famers. They spent their entire careers with one team. That's really impressive, so shout out to them. Two of the greatest pitchers of our generation going into the Hall. So now it's time for free agency, and we have some big decisions to make, starting with Oneil Cruz. And after thinking about it, I think it makes sense to bring him back. Oneil Cruz is still getting better. He has like 97 or 98 potential, so he is not at his peak yet, and he's been really good throughout his entire Pirates career. He wanted 23 mil at the deadline, but now he wants 30 mil. So he wants even more than Dylan Carlson was asking for, but I'm going to give it to him. I think it's worth it. 3 years, 91 mil. And Jameson Taillon, he clearly still has a lot left in the tank, had another really good season. So I'm going to offer him a contract. 2 years, 30 mil. This might be a little bit of an overpay, but he's still an ace-level pitcher, so I do want him back. And we're also going to offer Caleb Ferguson a contract. He was really good for us this year, 2.34 ERA. So we're going to offer him a 2-year, $14.5 million deal. Everybody else will be let go. I am willing to bring back guys like David DeGrom, Castro, Arano, and JD Martinez in free agency, but I don't want to sign them now. So let's go to the third and final offseason of the day. First off, Reyes Maranta does accept his player option, so he will be back. This free agency class is a little bit weaker, but it's still very strong. We could totally just re-sign Dylan Carlson. That'd be really funny. Trade him away for 2 studs and then get him right back. I would totally do that, but we just don't have the money. But I will be offering a contract to 34-year-old relief pitcher Yohan Lopez, who's been very good the past 2 seasons for the Diamondbacks. Going to offer him a 1-year deal worth $6.42. And that's the only offer I'm really going to make for now. We have a lot of money tied up these next 2 years, so we don't have a lot of financial flexibility going forward with Oneil Cruz making 30 mil. Let's see what happens around the league. Brendan McKay to Cleveland. Carter Kieboom to Oakland. Adley Rutschman is a White Sox. Sixto Sanchez signs with the Tampa Bay Rays. I thought about Jaime Barria. He signs with the Cleveland Indians. I wanted to add another starter, but I wasn't willing to pay him. Joe Adell signs with the Rockies. He's been really good the past couple of seasons for the Toronto Blue Jays. Those Blue Jays teams were loaded with Vlad Guerrero, Fernando Tatis, Austin Meadows. I don't know how they have so much money. Hunter Bishop being traded from the Yankees to the Rays in exchange for Cy Muser, who's a really good prospect. Speaking of the Rays, they sign our former Pirate, Miguel Andujar. Another former Pirate, Jace Fry, signs with the Cleveland Indians. And I forgot to mention it, but Yohan Lopez did accept his deal. A few more signings coming in. Still some pretty big free agents left, I believe. And we have a trade here. Paul DeYoung going to the Padres. Jaime Candelario signs in division. He is a Milwaukee Brewer, so now we have to worry about him. That's no fun. Going to simulate for Rule 5 draft. Again, I just let it simulate, and I just cut the player who the game drafted us because I didn't really want any of the Rule 5 players. So I think they gave us someone, but I ended up cutting him. So we start the season. We actually have a negative budget. So this is a problem because Franco, Cairo, and Osuna ended up winning their arbitration battles. So now we kind of have to trade some players away just to not be in the negatives. Going to start with Reyes Maranta. He's going to the Orioles in exchange for a few prospects. I just wanted to get younger and I wanted to get cheaper. That was the only goal. We still have a negative budget though, but only at negative $6K per week. So we're going to be trading Emmanuel Clase. I didn't want to do this because he's been with the team pretty much this whole series. He was the very first player we traded for, but he hasn't been good in the long-term sim so far, and we need to clear up money. So he's going to the Rangers for Manny Feliciano, Wendell Vincent, who was one of our draft picks back in Season 1, actually, and Enrique. I'm not going to say his last name because I don't want to get demonetized here on YouTube, but it has to do with the pandemic, and it's also the name of an alcoholic beverage. So now we at least are in the positives when it comes to the budget, but Franco, Cairo, and Osuna are going to continue to make more money, and eventually we're going to have to pay them. I'm not going to let any of them walk. I know that's a lot of money eventually tied into 3 players, but we're going to have to pay them eventually. Alexander Canario's on the Orioles, by the way. I don't know how that happened, but Thanks, MLB The Show, for getting rid of one of our better players. We still have a ton of outfield depth, so I'm not overly worried about it as we take a look at the lineup here for Season 8, the final season of today's episode. For the most part, the core has stayed intact so far, and I don't think it will stay intact for too much longer, but I do want this core to win another championship. We do have some new players, obviously, like Jarred Kelenic starting. The rotation will be adding Domingo Robles. He's now an 85 overall. And the bullpen is very different. We have a few minor leaguers coming in Gaylord Dixian, Rob Hills, and Anton Herrera. The only players who were on the team that won the World Series in this bullpen were Caleb Ferguson and Jose Alvarado. And neither of them were on the team the year before we won the World Series. So a lot of turnover here in this bullpen, but I do think we have a lot of good relievers. Again, simming to draft day, we are 39-23, 2 games behind the Brewers for first place in the division. So it looks like it'll be another old-fashioned race between us and Milwaukee. As you can see, Christian Yelich is still a machine for them. We only have to worry about him for 2 more years, though, and then he's gone. Finally. Cannot wait for when that day comes. I simmed the draft again, and it went a lot better this time. We got a really good pitcher in Shelby Gonzalez, so maybe the CPU does know what they're doing. So we're going to simulate to the All-Star break. Wander Franco and Pablo Cairo are both first in their positions for voting. And immediately once that happens, Pablo Cairo tears his calf, and he'll be out 2 to 3 months. So, yippee! Pablo Cairo's been fairly injury-prone so far, but his durability is getting a lot better, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about that too much longer. As we enter the All-Star break, Oneil Cruz is second for the MVP race behind Ronald Acuna. So Oneil Cruz is clearly playing up to his contract, which is great. Looking at the All-Star teams, we have Adonis Medina making it for the first time in his career. That's pretty exciting. The rookie, Anton Herrera, has a 1.47 ERA, .75 whip. This guy looks like a stud. We got him for pretty much Travis Swaggerty and Raisel Iglesias. Wander Franco is also an All-Star this year. That's very good to see. Oneil Cruz, of course, makes it as well, along with Bo Bichette. How has he done in his career? He's been obviously with us since then, Tampa Bay and St. Louis, and he's had a solid career. I'm happy we did get Wander Franco in exchange for him, but he's still a really good player. Jarred Kelenic also makes the All-Star team, which is pretty exciting. I think he's probably a little bit better than Dylan Carlson now, so again, thank you, White Sox. Entering the deadline, we are 2 games ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers for first place in the division, and I want to add a reliever to bolster the bullpen. I wanted someone who was old, cheap, and on a 1-year contract, but also really good. Sam Selman filled all of those voids for me, and we're going to be trading 3 pretty not-so-great prospects in exchange for him. The only problem with getting him is we're now in the negative in budget, so we have to trade somebody away, and I'm going to trade Yon Lopez to the Rockies for an 8 potential closer prospect, so essentially, we got a better reliever and a better prospect out of this. Big brain. Selman will now enter the bullpen. We will be simulating to the postseason now. But before that, I want to talk about Benny Ling real quick. Ling is about to be a free agent, and his rating has not improved at all, which didn't shock me because his potential was in the low 80s. I just figured he'd put up similar numbers to what he's been doing, but he's actually been a lot worse. And I'm not sure I'm going to be willing to pay Benny Ling this offseason, which does suck because he was a giant part of our World Series core, so that's going to be a very tough decision going into next episode. We go 96-66. I'm surprised we had a worse record than we did last year because I feel like we were better. I accidentally simulated the first 3 games of the playoffs against the Nats, and we're already down 2-1. So, are we going to lose in the NLDS for a 3rd straight year? Well, maybe not. We win Game 4, and we lose Game 5. So, in all 3 playoff runs today, we lose in the NLDS. The Nationals do in the World Series, I guess, so that's cool. As we see retirements, Enrique Rincon will be retiring. Chris Sale and former Pirate JD Martinez will be entering the Hall of Fame. So that enters today's episode. I think next time I'm going to go through 5 seasons as we take a look at the stats here since we didn't get to after the regular season. Pablo Cairo, by the way, is a 99 overall as well. His durability is an 81, so I'm very happy that is increasing. Benny Ling finished the year hitting 260, 17 home runs. He's pretty much a platoon guy now. He's really good against righties, but he's become really bad against lefties. So I really don't know what I want to do with him. Josh Bell apparently was sent down to the minors, which is odd. He still had a good year in the big leagues, but he is a 78 overall now. He has fallen off a cliff ratings-wise, and his production has gotten a little bit worse. so maybe we should not have signed him to that contract. The starting pitching took a little bit of a step down this season. Santiago Osuna and Patrick Magana both had their ERAs in the 4s, so would have hoped those guys did better, but they are still our 1-2 starting pitcher punch for the future. So that will end today's episode. We did not win another World Series. We actually did not win another playoff series, but we were able to keep the core together. I don't think we're going to be able to keep the core together next episode with a lot of key players entering free agency and a lot of our veterans like Josh Bell and Jamison Tyone entering the twilights of their careers. Hope everybody enjoyed. I think next time I'm going to go through 5 seasons, so we're going to go through even more in the next long-term sim. Let me know what you thought of the format of this video in the comments below. I want to know how I can improve it for the final 2 long-term sim episodes of the series. And as always, have a good one. Peace out.